Running from police does not make you guilty, but it does change your legal situation in a way that almost no one understands before they need to. The moment you run, you hand law enforcement a legal tool they did not have 30 seconds earlier. And in some cases, that tool is enough to justify an arrest, a search, and a conviction for something entirely unrelated to why they approached you in the first place. I am Ben. In the year 2000, the Supreme Court decided Illinois versus Wardlow. The case involved a man named Sam Wardlow who was standing on a street corner in a high-crime area of Chicago. When he saw a police caravan drive by, he ran. Officers chased him, stopped him, patted him down, and found an illegal firearm. Wardlow argued the stop was unlawful because police had no reason to chase him. The Supreme Court disagreed. The court held that unprovoked flight from police in a high-crime area, combined with other specific circumstances, can provide the reasonable, articulable suspicion required for a Terry stop. Running, the court said, is not just movement. It is a factor. That ruling is the foundation of everything that follows, because what it means is that running does not automatically get you arrested, but it can legally transform an encounter you had every right to walk away from into a detention you cannot. The legal baseline. To understand what running does, you first need to understand what a consensual encounter is. When a police officer walks up to you on a street, before they have any legal basis to detain you, that encounter is consensual. You are not required to stop. You are not required to answer questions. You are not required to stay. You can walk away. You can ignore them. You can turn around and leave. That is a constitutional right that has been repeatedly affirmed by the Supreme Court. But here is what most people do not know. You do not have to run to exercise that right. Walking away calmly, without running, without looking back, without engaging, is legally protected. Running is not the only exit. When you run, you change the encounter from a consensual one into something else. Under Illinois versus Wardlow, flight from police, particularly in a high-crime area, is a specific articulable fact that an officer can add to a list of other observations to establish reasonable suspicion. It does not by itself justify a stop, but it contributes to one. The phrase that matters in the Wardlow ruling is unprovoked flight. The court did not say that all running justifies a stop. It said that unprovoked flight, combined with other circumstances, can. That distinction matters. But in practice, an officer who decides to chase you is going to articulate reasons afterward. The flight becomes the anchor. Everything else gets built around it. What running actually does. The practical consequences of running fall into three categories. The first is reasonable suspicion. If an officer was approaching you with no basis to detain you, your flight can provide the missing piece. An officer who had nothing before you ran may have enough after. They chase you, they stop you, and now you are in a Terry stop with a legal basis that did not exist before you moved. The search that follows, the questions, the pat-down, everything that comes next has a legal foundation that your running helped create. The second is probable cause in specific situations. If you are already under reasonable suspicion and you run, courts have found that flight during a lawful detention can contribute to probable cause for an arrest. You have not just added to the suspicion, you have potentially crossed the threshold from detention to arrest. And probable cause for arrest opens doors that reasonable suspicion does not. The third is the practical reality of what happens when police chase someone. Pursuits escalate. Officers who begin a foot chase are not in a calm investigative mindset. The encounter that ends with you tackled to the ground or at gunpoint is a fundamentally different encounter than the one that would have ended with you walking away. Whatever happens during that pursuit, physically and legally, becomes part of your situation regardless of why you originally ran. The high crime area factor. The Wardlow decision specifically mentioned that Wardlow was in a high crime area when he ran. This language has had significant consequences for how courts apply the ruling. When officers testify about why flight established reasonable suspicion, they routinely include the location as a factor. High crime area plus flight equals a stronger argument for reasonable suspicion than flight alone. Critics of this framework have pointed out that high crime area designations fall disproportionately on specific neighborhoods and communities, meaning that the same act of running carries different legal consequences depending on where you are standing. The Supreme Court acknowledged in Wardlow that there are innocent reasons people run from police. Fear, past bad experiences, distrust of law enforcement. But the court held that this does not eliminate flight as a relevant factor. It means that flight is one consideration among many, not a guaranteed basis for a stop. In practice, what this means for you is that geography matters. The same decision to run produces different outcomes depending on where you are and how the officer documents the circumstances. Why people run. Understanding the legal consequences of running is not the same as judging people who run. There are documented reasons why people, including innocent people, run from police that have nothing to do with guilt. A 2016 study published in the Journal of Research in Crime and Delinquency found that black men in the United States reported significantly higher levels of distrust toward police than other demographic groups, and that this distrust directly influenced decisions about how to respond to police encounters. People with prior negative experiences with law enforcement, people who have watched others in their community be harmed during police contacts, people who associate police presence with danger rather than safety run not because they have done something wrong, but because their history tells them that staying is the greater risk. The Supreme Court acknowledged this in Wardlow. Justice Stevens, writing in partial dissent, argued that the majority failed to adequately account for the many innocent reasons a person might run from police. His opinion noted that individuals in high-crime areas frequently have direct personal experience with police misconduct, and that flight in response to that experience cannot simply be treated as evidence of guilt. The law says running is a factor. It does not say running is proof. That distinction is real. But a factor in the hands of law enforcement becomes evidence in a police report, and a police report becomes the foundation of a prosecution. After the chase. If you ran and were caught, the legal situation is already more complicated than it needed to be. Here is what matters going forward. Do not explain why you ran. The moment you start explaining, you are providing a statement. I ran because I was scared. I ran because I had a warrant. I ran because I did not know what they wanted. Every explanation is a piece of information that goes into a police report. None of it makes the flight disappear from the record. It just adds detail that can be used in additional ways. Invoke your right to an attorney immediately. I am invoking my right to an attorney. I will not answer any questions without a lawyer present. The flight has already happened. What you say after being stopped determines what comes next. An attorney can challenge whether the stop was lawful, whether the flight actually established reasonable suspicion given the specific circumstances, and whether any evidence collected as a result of the stop should be suppressed. The argument that an unlawful stop produces suppressible evidence is real. If the officer did not have reasonable suspicion before you ran, and your flight alone, without other corroborating circumstances, was not sufficient to establish it, the stop may have been unlawful. That is a legal argument to make in court, not on the street. Your job in the moment is to stop, not resist physically, and say nothing. What to do instead? If a police officer approaches you, and you are in a consensual encounter, you have options that do not involve running and do not require you to stay. The first option is to ask the question, am I being detained, or am I free to go? That question forces the officer to define the legal nature of the encounter. If they say you are free to go, walk away calmly. If they say you are being detained, you are now in a Terry stop regardless of whether you ran, and you should ask for the reasonable suspicion basis and provide nothing more than what your state's stop and identify law requires. The second option is to walk away without asking anything. In a consensual encounter, you do not have to announce your departure. You can simply turn and walk in a different direction at a normal pace. This is legally protected. It does not create reasonable suspicion. It is not flight. It is a person exercising their right not to engage with law enforcement in the absence of a legal obligation to do so. The third option is to stay and invoke. If you believe you may be detained regardless of what you do, standing in place and stating clearly that you do not consent to any search and that you are invoking your right to an attorney removes the flight factor entirely and creates a documented record that any subsequent search was not consensual. What running does is take a situation where you had a clean legal exit and introduce a complication. It gives the officer a fact to write down. It gives a prosecutor a detail to argue. And it converts what might have been a brief encounter with no legal consequence into a chase that ends in a very different place. The complete picture. Illinois versus Wardlow did not make running a crime. Running from police is not a criminal offense in most circumstances. But the ruling made running a legal tool for law enforcement. a building block for reasonable suspicion that can be combined with other factors to justify a stop that would not otherwise have been lawful. There is one more thing worth understanding. The Wardlow decision was 5-4. 4 Supreme Court justices believe the majority got it wrong. That is not a settled, unanimous reading of the Constitution. It is a 5-4 decision that has been criticized by legal scholars, civil liberties organizations, and the dissenting justices themselves for creating a framework that disproportionately impacts people in lower-income neighborhoods and communities of color. Knowing that this is a contested legal area, not a clear-cut rule, shapes how you should think about encounters where running felt like the only option. It did not. And understanding the law before you need it is the point. The encounter that begins with an officer walking toward you is a consensual encounter you can walk away from. The encounter that begins with you running is something else. It is a pursuit, and pursuits do not end the way consensual encounters end. You have a legal right to avoid police. You do not have to talk to them, answer their questions, or stay when they approach you. But there is a version of exercising that right that creates legal problems and a version that does not. Walking away is protected. Running is a factor that can be used against you. The next time an officer approaches you, ask the question, am I being detained or am I free to go? And if the answer is no, walk, not run,